December 18, 1944. The Kremlin. The telegram arrives at 11:47 p.m. Moscow time. It's brief, polite, and colder than the snow outside Stalin's window. Lend-Lease shipments will be re-evaluated in accordance with strategic priorities for 1945. No threats, no explanations. Just bureaucratic English typed on American paper. Stalin reads it twice, then places it face down on his desk. Outside, Red Army soldiers are celebrating victories from Leningrad to the Balkans. Inside this room, the Soviet leader has just seen something his generals haven't. The war isn't ending, it's changing sides. The office is dim. A single lamp throws shadows across maps of Europe, maps where red flags now stretch from Warsaw to Budapest. Stalin lights his pipe. The match flares, then dies. On the table, intelligence reports, production figures, photographs from American factories, all delivered by NKVD couriers in the last 72 hours. He doesn't touch them yet. Through the thick walls, faint sounds. Typewriters in adjacent offices, boots on marble floors, the low hum of a building that never sleeps. But here, silence. Stalin stands, walks to the window. Moscow below is blacked out, a city that has survived siege, starvation, and 3 winters of total war. He exhales smoke slowly. They think we won together. He turns back to the desk. But Allies don't send telegrams like this. 6 months ago, the illusion was perfect. June 6th, 1944. The Americans and British finally open the second front in Normandy. Stalin receives the news with cautious satisfaction. The Red Army has been bleeding alone since 1941. Now, finally, the West is committed. By August, Soviet forces are in Poland. By September, Romania switches sides. In October, Red Army tanks roll into Belgrade. The numbers look triumphant: 6.5 million Soviet soldiers on the front. 20,000 tanks operational. Berlin is 600 kilometers away. Western press calls it the unstoppable red tide. Stalin's generals speak of victory parades in 1945, of rebuilding, of finally dictating terms to a defeated Germany. And for a few weeks, it feels real. Lend-Lease convoys still arrive in Murmansk. American trucks, canned food, aviation fuel, steel. Roosevelt's letters remain warm. Churchill sends congratulations after every captured city. The alliance seems unbreakable. But then the intelligence reports start coming in. And the numbers behind the numbers begin to surface. And Stalin, who trusts nothing and no one, starts asking his advisors a single question. What happens when Germany falls? The reports are clinical, typed in Russian, translated from American industrial journals, British strategic assessments, and intercepted diplomatic cables. Stalin reads them in order. No emotion, just absorption. Report number 1. Industrial capacity. United States war production, 1944. 96,000 aircraft manufactured. 17,000 tanks produced. 49 aircraft carriers operational or under construction. 70% of all Allied war material coming from American factories. Soviet production, same period, 40,000 aircraft, 29,000 tanks, 0 aircraft carriers. Heavy dependence on American aluminum, copper, steel alloys. Report number 2. Nuclear intelligence. NKVD asset. Perseus confirms. Americans have operational atomic weapon program. Codename, Manhattan Project. Estimated completion, mid-1945. Soviet nuclear program status, theoretical stage only. Report number 3. Strategic positioning. Current Allied progress in Western Europe. Patton's Third Army, 1,000 kilometers advanced since June. British forces, northern Germany in reach. Strategic bombing. German industrial capacity reduced 60%. Meanwhile, Red Army progress slows. Logistical lines stretch 2,000 kilometers from Soviet borders. Casualties, 800,000 plus since June offensive. German resistance stiffening in Poland. Report number 4. Post-war planning. Intercepted State Department memo, November 1944. Soviet cooperation necessary until German surrender. After that point, re-evaluate all assistance programs based on American strategic interests. The language is diplomatic. The meaning is not. Stalin sets down the final page. He does not call for his generals, does not call an emergency Politburo meeting. He simply sits and calculates. Stalin opens a drawer, pulls out a map, not of Europe, but of global industrial capacity. It was prepared by Soviet economists 3 weeks ago. He requested it personally. The map uses colors red, Soviet industrial zones; blue, American industrial capacity; gray, everything else. He stares at it for a long time. The blue overwhelms everything. The United States produces more steel than the rest of the world combined, more oil than all of Europe and Asia together, more electricity than 20 Soviet unions. And they haven't been invaded, haven't lost 20 million people, haven't seen their factories burned to ash. Stalin picks up a red pencil, draws a line from Moscow to Berlin, then a blue line from New York to Berlin. The American line is shorter. He sets down the pencil. We bled for 3 years while they built. Now they will arrive fresh, strong, and we will arrive exhausted. He thinks about Roosevelt's telegram again, the polite bureaucratic phrasing, re-evaluated in accordance with strategic priorities. Not our alliance, not mutual victory. Strategic priorities. Stalin has spent his entire life reading between lines, surviving by understanding what powerful men don't say. And what Roosevelt isn't saying is clear. We don't need you anymore. The Red Army is 600 kilometers from Berlin. The Americans are 800, but the Americans have intact supply lines across an ocean they control completely. Industrial capacity that grows every month while Soviet capacity barely holds steady. An atomic weapon that will be ready before Berlin falls. And most importantly, a country that hasn't been destroyed. Stalin closes his eyes. He sees the future in an instant. Germany surrenders. The Americans dictate terms. Soviet casualties, 25, perhaps 30 million dead, are acknowledged with somber speeches and then forgotten. The West rebuilds Western Europe with American money, American machinery, American influence, and the Soviet Union, exhausted, depleted, dependent. He opens his eyes. The map is still there. The blue still dominates. He speaks aloud, though no one else is in the room. They let us bleed. Now they will let us beg. It's not anger in his voice. It's something colder. Recognition. The mechanism was always there. Stalin simply didn't want to see it. He walks back to his desk, picks up a file marked Lend-Lease Analysis, August 1944. His own economists wrote it. He read it once, then buried it. Now he reads it again. The trap was simple. Stage 1, 1941 to 1942. Soviet Union is collapsing. Nazi armies are 30 kilometers from Moscow. Without American aid, trucks, fuel, food, the Red Army cannot function. Roosevelt offers Lend-Lease. No interest, no repayment schedule during wartime. It seems like salvation. It is. But it's also dependence. Stage 2, 1943 to 1944. Soviet forces advance. But every advance runs on American fuel. Every truck carrying Soviet soldiers was built in Detroit. Every pair of boots worn by Red Army soldiers came through Murmansk convoys. Soviet factories produced tanks and artillery, weapons. But logistics, food, communications equipment, medicine, American. The hidden equation, Soviet military power equals Soviet production plus American supply. Remove American supply equals Stalin does the math himself. Without American trucks, Red Army mobility drops 60%. Without American aviation fuel, Soviet Air Force grounded within weeks. Without American food supplies, rationing becomes starvation. Without American steel alloys, tank production collapses. The Red Army isn't independent. It's a hybrid force, and the Americans control half of it. Stage 3, late 1944. Germany is losing. This is obvious to everyone. But now a new question emerges. Who will occupy Germany? Whoever reaches Berlin first doesn't just win the war. They define the peace. And the Americans have realized something Stalin has always known. The alliance was never about friendship. It was about necessity. In 1941, America needed the Soviet Union to bleed Germany dry. In 1944, Germany is already bleeding. The necessity is ending. And alliances built on necessity die when the need disappears. Stalin looks at another document. Intercepted British strategic assessment from October. One line is underlined in red ink. Soviet cooperation remains essential until German surrender. Post-surrender cooperation is optional and contingent on Soviet behavior. Optional. Contingent behavior. These are not words used between equals. These are words used by empires addressing client states. Stalin sets down the file. The mechanism is clear now. The West never planned to share Europe. They planned to let the Soviet Union destroy itself, defeating Germany. Then step in, fresh, powerful, nuclear-armed, and shape the world alone. And Stalin, focused entirely on reaching Berlin, walked directly into it. Stalin stands at the window again. Moscow is still dark, still silent. But in his mind, he's already in 1946, 1947, 1950. He sees it clearly now. The world after Germany falls will not be shared. It will be divided. And the line will be drawn not by negotiation, but by whoever has strength left when the shooting stops. The Americans will have strength. The British will have empire. And the Soviet Union, victories, monuments, millions of graves, and exhaustion. He makes a decision, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet recalculation in the cold logic that has kept him alive for 30 years. If they no longer need us, then we must make sure we no longer need them. The orders go out quietly. December 20th, 1944. Soviet intelligence redirected. Priority shifts from German military targets to American nuclear program. Perseus and other NKVD assets ordered, obtain every schematic, every formula, every name. January 8th, 1945. Military strategy adjusted. Red Army offensives accelerated, not to defeat Germany faster, to occupy as much territory as possible before American forces arrive. Every kilometer taken now is a kilometer held later. February 4th, 1945. Yalta Conference. Stalin sits across from Roosevelt and Churchill. They talk about democracy, about free elections in Poland, about cooperation. Stalin nods, agrees, smiles, and thinks, "You're negotiating for a world where you still need me. I'm preparing for one where you don't." The consequence. The Cold War doesn't begin in 1947. It begins here, in this office, on this December night, when one man reads a telegram and understands victory in war does not guarantee power in peace. The Americans will get their atomic bomb in July 1945. The Soviets will get theirs in August 1949. 4 years late, but they will get it. Because Stalin, sitting in this dark office in December 1944, has already decided, whatever it costs, however long it takes, we will never be dependent again. Epilogue. History will remember the Yalta Conference, the division of Germany, the Iron Curtain, the Berlin Wall. But those were just consequences. The actual moment, the pivot point, was quieter. A telegram delivered at 11:47 p.m. A man standing at a window. And a realization. Alliances built on fear die when fear is gone. And empires built on strength begin when that fear is replaced by something colder. Certainty. Stalin turns from the window, sits back at his desk, picks up a pen, and begins writing orders for a war that hasn't started yet. But will. Because in that moment, he understood what the Americans did not. The only thing more dangerous than a powerful enemy is a weak ally who refuses to stay weak. The lamp flickers. Outside, Moscow sleeps. Inside, the future is being written, one cold decision at a time. That telegram in December 1944 didn't end a war. It started one that would last 45 years. A war fought not with tanks and bullets, but with rockets, spies, and the constant fear that one miscalculation would end everything. If this story made you see the Cold War differently, if you realized that the decisions made in quiet rooms matter more than the battles fought in open fields, then subscribe. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about why it happened. And the why is always hidden in moments like this.